Get going. Hello, travelers. Welcome to Reach the World. For over 20 years, Reach the World has used virtual exchange to inspire youth to become curious, confident, and compassionate global citizens. My name is Tim, and this week, together with Citi's E for Education campaign, we're going on a journey to explore how global citizens can put that valuable skill set to work as part of a global career. Throughout this week, we'll be connecting with Citi employees and financial capitals around the world. They have all generously agreed to share their stories, observations, and tips for finding success in this highly interconnected global economy. Today, we're staying a little closer to home for anyone who's in North America. We're traveling to New York City, and we're going to speak with Wyatt, Dominique, Yao, and Monica. This wonderful group is joining us to talk about working, living, and thriving professionally in New York City. Before we meet them, though, I want to welcome the teachers, students, Reach the World travelers, and early career professionals who are watching today. Feel free to use the YouTube chat bar on the right-hand side of your screen if you're watching on YouTube to let us know you're here, where you're joining from, and to share any questions you have for our guests as we go. But without further ado, it's time to take a journey to the Big Apple. Wyatt, Dominique, Yao, and Monica, welcome to Reach the World.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's great.
Thank you.
It is wonderful to have you all here. I'm going to switch to gallery view because this is such a great group of people. Nice to see you all. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to speak with us today. I want to dive right into it because I know our time is limited. Let's get started on your personal global career journeys. For most people, it's a pretty conscious choice at some point that you want to work with people from other countries and you want to have the excitement of global interactions as part of your career. Dominique, you're in the top left of my screen. Maybe we can start with you. What was your career journey, global career journey like?
Sure, happy to. Thank you, Tim. So my career journey has been a little all over the place, and I actually met Moni through it. So I started with Citi 13 years ago, a little over that, and I'm from Honduras in Central America. So I started with Citi in Honduras, but I always knew that I wanted to work in an international bank and hopefully move around. I had studied university in Canada before going back home and starting to work. And so when I started working there, I took kind of the first job that was open in Citi, which was not in what I had studied. It was more in risk while I had studied finance. But then the first job that opened up in the Treasury Department and markets having to do with foreign exchange, with interest rates, with commodities, I moved to that role. And that allowed me to move along since then for the last 12 years. So I was in Colombia for about 6 months where I met Monica. I was in Costa Rica for 4 years, in Honduras for a few years, and I've been in New York for the past 5. And when I first moved to New York, I was overlooking Latin America. So I was working with the head of our business for Latin America, and now I've moved to also cover US and Canadian clients. So it's been a bit of a ride.
Wow, yeah, you've been all over the place. Thank you for that. Wyatt, you're next on my screen.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. And actually, I just learned something from Dominique. So I actually lived in Honduras for a while, so that sort of brings up a little bit of my life. So I grew up actually before I even started my career international. I've lived in 8 different countries, and that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to work for Citi, being such a global bank. From a career, I started my career in Florida, where I spent about 2 years there, moved up to New York, and then through Citi's globality had the opportunity to move out to Asia and lived in Singapore for 2 years before moving back to the States. And similar to Dominic, I've been here 13 years and been involved, in Asia, been involved with Latin America, and now involved with all of the Americas. So having that globality personally, but also globality that the firm offers has been something really special.
Amazing. What another amazing global journey. Monica.
Thank you. So, well, my career with Citi started as well almost 13 years ago as Dominique and Wyatt. That's like a good coincidence that I just learned about them. I've worked with both of them in my previous role in markets. I started back in Colombia again 13 years ago as an intern in the markets team with Wyatt, actually. I was driving the the e-commerce business for FX for corporate clients back then in Colombia. I moved then to a full-time position where I stayed 6 years in the corporate sales team, where I met Dominique when she was in Colombia for a couple of months. And then I moved within the same markets team in Colombia, but to a different, let's say, set of clients or role within the investors sales desk. After 2 years, I moved to New York, where I currently live now. And I not only changed geographies, but I also changed businesses. I'm now part of the transactional banking team, where I've been for the past 4 years and a half now. Still very involved with my markets team, well, not with Dominique and Wyatt now, but with Yo, who is also with us today. So it's been a journey as well, 13 years, different businesses, different geographies, and certainly in a good place to work now.
Wonderful, thank you,
Tim,
Monica.
Tim, you're bringing in all these people together that, you know, even haven't
Exactly.
spoken or don't know.
In years.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it is it's a coincidence for sure, but also not that all of you so far, at least, and we haven't gotten to Yao yet, have had have been all over the place and have similar sort of global experiences that have brought you to similar positions within Citi. So yeah, fun to make those connections. Last but not least, Yao.
Awesome. So I just wanted to say, I guess I'm going to have to maybe take a trip to Colombia and work in Colombia, so I have something in common with Monica, Wyatt, and Dominique. Same here. I've been with Citi for 13, going to 14 years now. I was born in Ghana. I came to the US at the age of 15, and I resided in the Bronx. And I went to school in Buffalo. And after graduation, my first career was with Citi. And I think being from Ghana and knowing Citi, or having an understanding of that bank existed, it kind of gave me that intriguing feeling to start my career with Citi. And also, like Wyatt said, the global footprint of Citi. It gives you that opportunity to also travel and to get to know different cultures. I worked in Buffalo for a few years, and I took a role within markets to move to New York City. And I've been in New York for the past 4 or 5 years now. So that is my background.
All right, thank you. As a sort of a common theme of each of your stories, there seems to be a high level of comfort with travel and sort of moving amongst different countries and cultures. Do any of you have a specific experience from like your childhood where prior to that you were like very comfortable with where you lived and like not super interested in this global world, and then something happened, or I'll say right away, lots of our students study abroad, and that's a very life-changing activity for them. Can any of you pinpoint that moment where you're like, I need to like be a part of this global world, either through work or some other aspect of my life?
Yeah, I can jump in there, Tim. Instead of being focused, I was sort of thrown into it as a child, moving around every 2.5 to 3 years because of my mom's job. And I think what that allowed me to show is being able to be open to new experiences really helped my career. I think one of the things I always talk about is I was always the new kid. And my birthday is actually in August. And so I was always the new kid at a new school, starting school. So, school in this sort of side of the world starts in August, early September. And remember being in class and not knowing anyone, and it was my birthday. And so being able to adapt to new situations, or being able to going to a big room and not know anyone, but feel comfortable with yourself or feel comfortable with your background, and not have fear, right? I'm in sales, and one of the things we do in sales is, what's the worst thing a client's going to say is no, right? Or not pick you up, or make you even tougher. And so, one of the important things that I've learned is just being global and being thrown into that. It's just being open to other people, but also, being open to experiences that that make you stronger.
All right,
and
thank you, Wyatt.
Yeah, I think in similar case to Wyatt's journey, moving from Ghana to the States or to the Bronx at the age of 14, 15, is still young, right? And you get to experience different culture, how things are done in the Bronx, and especially in the whole US, and having that getting to learn and understand how things are done in different ways, right? And so packing my stuff from the Bronx and moving to Buffalo. Buffalo is all the way up there close to Canada by myself, was another challenging task that I took upon myself at the age of 18. And that also opened the door for me to understand different things done in Buffalo, etc. And I think that gave me the comfort and also the strength and the push to try and get into a bank such as Citi with a global footprint, with the opportunity or the opportunity to move to different countries and to work with different countries and to learn and understand different cultures.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. I love this theme of like the new kid. We all know what the new kid feeling is like, and some people, were the new kid because of a choice of theirs, or maybe they were traveling with their family like Wyatt. But there's a certain exhilaration in being the new kid, figuring out a new place. That I think a lot of people experience when they study abroad for the first time or move to a different place and are figuring out a new way of doing things. That's an interesting thread. All right, let's move on to our second topic, specifically having to do with living and working in New York. Many people who are lucky in the US get a chance to come and visit New York as a tourist destination. And I imagine that living and working in New York is a different experience than coming and visiting Times Square for a week. Who wants to sort of start us off with what it's like to actually live in New York?
I can start with my own experience. It's definitely something completely different. I used to come here for vacations probably at least once a year or so, because my dad lives here in New York. He has been living here for over 20 years. And I think that was part of what I was attracted to the city as well at some point when I got the opportunity to move to New York, right? But living here, it's something I would say, like, it's not something that you imagine when you come here to visit Times Square. I actually lived very close to Times Square for the first year and a half when I moved to the city. But the good thing about the city, and I think it's like something that really welcomes everybody to when they come here to the city and establish themselves in the city for good or for a couple of years, is that you find people and you meet people from all over the world that are literally in the same situation. They are new to the city. They are open to, make friends, to build your family, because ultimately when you live abroad and you are away from your family, your friends really become your family where you live. So I think that was, I believe, like the greatest advantage or the greatest aspect of moving to New York. I just met like so many people that have made my life so I would say nice and easier, that all the rest, like worrying about how to learn to commute, something that I didn't have to make back in my country because I was just living 10 minutes away from the office. So I used to walk every day. Here I had to take the subway at some point. Like many different things, like get used to the culture. But I think that was like the main aspect that really made everything easier.
Right. Thanks, Monica. Dominique, you want to add?
Yeah, I would just add that it's a different experience. I think the very first time I came to New York, I remember I was a teenager, and I remember going to Times Square and feeling overwhelmed and hating it and wanting to leave immediately. But then I remember the first time I came to work and experience kind of what Monica was saying, like being here in a different environment, not as a tourist, not as the buzz and the busyness of everything and the intensity of everything can be a little overwhelming at first. But once you kind of find your way around a life, and when you're living here, you find there's something for everybody, right? As Monica was saying, yeah, there's friendships that you make that become your family when you're a foreigner, but also you find that whatever your interests are, there's something for everybody here. So you can find whatever you want and make a life for yourself, which is fantastic. And it's not something that necessarily is the case everywhere, right? There's just so much culture and availability and variety of things here.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, and so I just want to add one thing. I think you've all made good points. One thing I would like to say regarding New York is I always tell people is the diversity, the welcoming of different cultures. You can go anywhere, any borough, and you find yourself in the midst of different people from different all walks of life, and it's not just it's very welcoming, right? Whoever you meet, they welcome you, they accept who you are, and I think that's one thing that is very important to me in terms of New York City.
Yeah, I'm curious. I know you all work with people from other countries and cultures on a daily basis as part of your job. In your personal life outside of work, how is New York a global place? Like, what sort of global things happen to you on a daily basis outside of work?
What type of global things happen? I believe that one of the, the one that I enjoy the most is finding food from everywhere in the world. Like one day I just wake up and I say, hey, I want Brazilian food. I have my Brazilian restaurant. I want Colombian. I have my, of course, set of good Colombian restaurants in the city. I want food from Kyrgyzstan, food from whatever country you can imagine, even from, you might have also your Ghana place here in the city, right?
And I can show you.
Exactly. Well, thank you. Yeah, I would be happy to go. So I think that's like my favorite thing about the globality of the city.
Great. I love it. It's a global lifestyle as much as it is a global career to live and work in New York. I think I'm hearing from you all. Great. Thank you. Is there anything you wanted to add to that before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, I just think, outside of food, it's the people and the culture that bring you in. When you talk about, having diverse teams and having teams that make you better because of the diversity or globality that people bring in, I think having that on the streets of a city is great. And makes the city really strong and makes it unique, and something that we want to be part of. And I had agreement with Dominic. My first business trip ever up to New York, although I had been here as a kid, was in February once. And I was on my way to this meeting in a suit, and I stepped into a puddle of basically freezing cold ice water, and was wringing out my sock on the way to see a client in the back of a cab. So I also hated New York after my first business trip, but it's been great.
Seems to have grown on you, though. For all of our audience who's listening and watching today, I think a lot of what you're saying sounds very attractive, and they and their careers especially are interested in knowing how to get a job like yours, how to obtain these elusive, wonderful jobs where you get to travel a lot and opportunities to live and work around the world. Let's get into some really practical career advice. I'm curious, what has worked well for you? What would you recommend to young people who are trying to make a global career happen for themselves? Let's see here. Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead. I think. Look, my first thing of advice, no matter where you want to be in finance or not, is to be humble and hungry in what you want to focus on. I will tell you my story very quickly. Citi actually told me no when I tried to apply for a job at first, and I ended up, going a non-traditional route of getting my job at Citi through a job fair. Through my university that I was going to school with, got an opportunity because of my globality, because of my language skills, actually, is why I got the job to work at Citi. And I promised myself that now that I was in the door, I was going to work harder than anyone else that was around me. And one of the things that I always tell younger individuals that come onto the desk is it doesn't matter where that person to your left or right went to school 100%. Now that you're in the door, what matters is how hard you work, how humble you are, how integrated you are in part of a team, how open you are for making sure you stand up and voice who you are. So I think, there are certain things one has to do, but once you're in the door, it really depends your attitude. It has a lot to do with it.
All right, thank you. I had all the language teachers on the call are applauding you right now, Wyatt, for the shout out for the value of learning other language. Out of curiosity, what language is it that you speak other than English?
So I was born in Brazil, so I speak Portuguese and Spanish. But my language at first, my question that I was asked at the job fair was, do you speak Portuguese? And the answer was yes. My future boss ended up being Mexican, I'm half Mexican, which ended up just molding very well to that. So it was great.
All right. So everyone out there, keep practicing those languages. Foreign languages are always very useful in a global career. Dominique, go ahead.
I would just add I would agree absolutely with everything that Wyatt said. I think hunger and attitude has everything to do. At the end of the day, the technical skills can always be learned. But I would just add to that networking. I think meeting as many people as possible, because at the end of the day, you never know the walks of life and where those people are going to move and how those people, like, for example, Moni and I met 10 years ago almost, and we're both in New York now, and you never know who's going to be moving around, who can let you know when there's a job opening or something that they think of you. Because if you're as White was saying, hungry and work hard, then your work will speak for yourself. And then having the network can also help you find those opportunities.
All right, thank you. Monica?
Yes, to Dominic's point, one thing that I would add is discipline. Technical skills you can always learn as long as you have the good discipline, like a strong discipline to learn wherever you need to learn the business, the mechanics, what are the main drivers. That's all you need. You don't need to be like the smartest person in the room to get a job, right? You need to be disciplined, well, maybe to get a job, but not to maintain and keep growing in the financial industry, right? Or whatever industry you want to join. Now, the second advice, and this is something that I always tell to my analysts, is you need to drive your own career. You need to own your career. You need to know your choices. You cannot let others decide on your career. And always have a sponsor. Try to get sponsors for you. Those sponsors are also going to open up opportunities for you and connections to increase your network.
Great, thank you. Just for my clarification, is a sponsor the same thing as a mentor?
It's a bit different. A sponsor usually is someone that goes to bat for you. In my own definition, someone that goes to bat for you, meaning someone that speaks on your behalf, know your work. A mentor is basically someone that guides you.
The sponsor talks about you even when you're not in the room.
Exactly.
Tim, one of the things that comes to mind a lot too is the word, and Monica touched upon this, is curiosity. Right? When you own your own career and you own sort of what you want, even when you're in school, you have to be curious. And if you don't have that fire, with Dominic and Monica talked about, everything can be taught technically, but if you don't have that fire within, right, either to learn it or be curious and looking for what's next, or having that push you forward, that can't be taught. So if you don't have that fire within, then that's something that you can't teach.
Yeah, and just to add a few things, I think we've all hit major points. I think being yourself, being your authentic self, is very, very important, and also being open for change. It's very, very important as well. And one key takeaway, which is the hunger. We all started from non-traditional routes to where we are today, and I think it's having that hunger inside of you, that this is what you want, and once you get it, you work hard, or 20 times harder than the next person that came through the traditional way.
So is it fair to say that these are not careers you just sort of stumble upon, that each of you arrived in your current role because it's something you really wanted and you worked hard and took these extra steps to get there? Absolutely. All right, great. Well, thank you all. That's fascinating. I want to sort of close on a lighter topic. If I had never been to New York before and I was coming there, what would I absolutely have to do to do, see, eat, whatever, however you interpret that question, to really get an understanding of the energy of New York, the global aspect of New York City? I'm from the Bronx, so I'm going to say the Yankee Stadium. You have to make sure you take a trip to the Yankee Stadium, go watch a game, go watch a baseball game. All right, excellent.
And that after the Bronx, you need to make your trip to Queens, one of our main counties in the city. I used to live there until just probably 3 months ago, and I lived there for 3 years. It's amazing. I think it's like a small world in Queens. You find everything there, all the cultures. One of my favorite places in the city, I believe.
Thank you, Monica. Dominique?
I would say take a ferry ride and watch the city from outside as well.
All right, well, this is becoming like a week-long itinerary, which is great. I think that even probably isn't enough time, but what would you add?
Yeah, I think one of the things when I moved up to New York in 2009 is I thought everything was you open your window and there's either like a U-Haul or another building like right in front of it, and you ended up finding that there's a neighborhood down south, right next to Tribeca, called Battery Park North, which is like a neighborhood, and there's actually grass and trees, and there's every little pocket of New York is very different, and depending on what you want is there. So I think coming down here where the city building is a really special location.
All right, just for clarification, where are Citi's offices in New York City?
It's down in Tribeca.
Okay. All right, so the southern area, southern tip of Manhattan.
Yes.
All right, very good. Well, thank you all so much for that great advice. I feel like we covered a lot of stuff in a short period of time, and I appreciate you volunteering to share your expertise and experiences with all of us today. Thanks also to our entire audience for tuning in today. There are more Citi Global Career Journey stops to come, so stay tuned. If you missed any of our previous stops with the Citi teams in London, Johannesburg, Tel Aviv, Sao Paulo, Seoul, Bangkok, Singapore, Kampala, we have more to come, like I said. So you can find the recordings of past events at Reach the World's YouTube channel, and stay tuned for upcoming events as well. Special thanks to the Citi E4Education campaign and to all our many Citi volunteers for making this learning experience possible. Thank you all in New York. I really appreciate getting a chance to speak with you today, and have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.